What if I told you I built a complete file renaming app inside Excel in one afternoon? In the days before AI, making an app like this could take you days of trial and error, but I'll show you how ChatGPT can help you to master Excel automation in much less time. This video is for you if you've used Excel for a while, you're ready to level up with automation, and you've secretly wanted to build your own tools, but you felt like VBA was a mountain too steep to climb. But it's not for you if you don't want to use VBA to build your own Excel automations, because while AI does make it easier, you'll still need to do some work to learn concepts and test things out. But if you stick with me, I'll make it even easier, and the payoff will be worth your time. So, what's the big problem we're trying to solve today? You have a folder that's full of files, and in this case, I've got 10 images, but there could be hundreds of them down here. And for all of these images, you want to be able to rename them quickly, because at the moment they just say image underscore and a number. I want to be able to change the names so that they're now called world trip with a number. But if I have to do it for all of the images, and imagine there could be 100 images, it would take me a very long time to go F2 to rename, then type in world underscore trip underscore 0002, enter, and then do the same for each of these images in turn. What I really want is a way to be able to rename all of these in one go. How do we do that? Here's my spreadsheet. I'll click on this blue button that says choose folder, and then I'll select the folder with images and click OK. Now it's going to populate, and you can see the file extension with the current name here. And I can scroll all the way to the bottom, and you'll see that there are the 10 images in the folder. Now I'll select all of the image names, pressing Ctrl-Shift down arrow to select them all. Press Ctrl-C to copy them, and I'll paste them into this new name column. Now here's where we'll use Excel's find and replace. I'll press Ctrl-H, and I'm going to replace the word image with the words world underscore trip, and click on replace all. Those made 10 replacements. Click OK, and I'll close that. Now you can see immediately all of the names are changed to world trip inside the spreadsheet. So to change the names in the folder, I'll click on rename, which is this orange button. And we see the word OK next to each of these names because there's no error found on these lines. When we head back into Windows Explorer, we can see all of the images be renamed in an instant. Okay, so back in Excel, you can see we renamed 10 files very quickly. But what if we have 1,000? Let me clear this and then choose a different folder. I'm going to choose sample text files and click OK. So this folder contains more than 100 files. I'll click yes to continue. Now because they're text files, there is no image. I'll change the row height from 100 down to say 15. And you can see, if I go Control down, that there are actually 1,001 text files in this folder. And I'm going to rename them all in an instant. So I'll press Ctrl-Shift down arrow to select them all, press Ctrl-C to copy, and then paste them, Ctrl-V in column E. Then I'll press Ctrl-H to find and replace. I'll replace the term text file with sales export, or it could be supplier data or customer file, or whatever it is you want to replace it with. Then I'll click on replace all. That's made 1,001 replacements, so I click OK, and I close the window. So now I'll click on rename, and then head back into Windows Explorer. So now all of the text files are now sales export, and you can see the total number of them, 1,001, all done in an instant. But what happens if I didn't want to do that? So there's actually this undo last button. If I click on that, it returns everything to the previous name. And you can see that when I go back to Windows Explorer. So they're all back to text file instead of sales export. Now this undo last feature only works if you immediately undo, because it won't remember, especially if you close the spreadsheet. So it can only undo the last change. Was that useful? Can you see how much time it could save you? Soon, I'll walk you through how I built this app. But first, you can download it for free by following the instructions in the description below. And of course, you could just use it as it is, but here's where I think it gets interesting. All the code is open for you to learn from. So the workbook gives you a complete working app, and you can customize it or adapt it for your own projects. But now, back to the question, how did I go from a blank spreadsheet to this working application in just a couple of hours? Well, I used two things. First is VBA, which stands for Visual Basic for Applications, and the second is AI, specifically ChatGPT. Here's my conversation history with ChatGPT. To start with, I used the model called O4 Mini, which is fastest at advanced reasoning, and is currently available on the Plus plan for $20 a month. And then I switched to O4 Mini High, which is great for coding and visual reasoning. But I only switched to that after I finished designing the application, which I'll show you soon. However, you can also use the free plan with the base ChatGPT 4.0, which is great for most tasks. And while it isn't as good as the O4 Mini model for coding, it's still pretty powerful. So I started by asking a general question. I wanted to know if there's a file that's of type PDF or a text file, would Excel be able to create a preview image of that file to show inside the cell? So the model thought for 14 seconds, and you can click here to see its thought process. And it gave me this answer, which I looked through, and I said, okay, let's assume we'll go straight for the simple image files and ignore all PDFs, because it does turn out that Excel VBA can't handle other files except for image files. Up here, I actually attached an image of what I'd like the app to look like. Now here's an important part of the conversation that I added at the very end of my next prompt. Let's not start writing any code until you are 95% confident that you understand my exact requirements. So at this stage in the development of ChatGPT and AI in general, you can actually start to treat this less as a tool and more as a partner for brainstorming and for creating. So if you treat AI as a teammate, it can do a lot more for you than if you just treat it as a tool. So for instance, I decided to update the design a few times, like here, and then gave it some further clarifications because it kept asking me questions. And then another design here, and then some more clarifications, which by the way, I didn't actually type out. I can use the dictate function here to speak into this so that I only need to edit text instead of type it all out. So throughout this conversation, I continued asking it to ask me more questions to make sure it's at least 95% certain that it knows what I want. And I kept giving clarifications. Now, at one point in the conversation, it actually suggested to use the worksheet's worksheet column width changed event. Now, if I didn't know VBA, I wouldn't have known that that was not an actual event. So I double checked this using Google, and indeed, it says the worksheet change event can be used, but there isn't a dedicated event just for column width changes. So I actually took a screenshot of that and told ChatGPT that Excel doesn't have a dedicated column width change or row height change event. So I decided to start with a new mockup. I actually created it inside Excel like this and pasted it as a screenshot so that ChatGPT could see what cell references I was going to use. And then I said, let's start again with this. Ask me every question you need to know before we start coding. And it went off and started asking me more questions. And then I replied to the questions, and it kept going for a while until it reached a point where its description of what it wanted to do matched exactly what I wanted it to do. And I asked it to proceed. So it thought for a whole 1 minute and 14 seconds, which is quite a long time for an AI, and you can see the thought process. And it completed the VBA. Unfortunately, even though it said it provided the complete VBA, there wasn't any VBA code. So I had to ask it to actually put it in the conversation because it's not there. And then it thought again for 43 seconds. So you can see AI isn't perfect by any means, but you do want to treat it as a partner instead of a tool. So just imagine someone who might have forgotten to copy and paste the code into an email or something like that. And then it actually produced the VBA in here. So I can click on this and you can see the VBA code it produced. So to be honest, originally when it produced it, it looked correct, but now I'm reviewing the chat. For some reason, it doesn't format properly. Every so often, it will go and put it into a code box like this. But for some reason, I don't know why, the formatting just got a bit messed up. So what I did was actually copied and pasted this into Excel in the VBA code editor, and I got it to work with the spreadsheet. Okay, so I recommend you pause the video and get a copy of this workbook. Just follow the download instructions in the description. Then, when you open the file, make sure you enable the content because otherwise macros are disabled. So we'll click on Enable Content. And to see the code, press Alt and F11 to open up the VB editor. Now, if all this code gives you a headache because it looks like ancient hieroglyphs, I totally understand. The first time I saw VBA code, I had no idea what it meant. So if you're new to VBA, how do you learn all of this and what it means without feeling overwhelmed? Let's say we're looking at this section of code for choosing a folder and populating the file path. So we could either copy and paste the text by selecting it inside the editor like this, and then pressing Control-C and then Control-V inside ChatGPT. Or what I'm going to do is press Windows-Shift-S, bring up the snipping tool, and select a portion of the screen like this. Now I head into ChatGPT, click on Ask Anything, and press Control-V to paste. So you can see that's pasted the image. Close that. And now I can type in a simple prompt like, explain this VBA subroutine to a beginner. and click on submit. So then it gives you an explanation of what it does. Helpfully, it will do it in plain English. And then it gives a line-by-line breakdown and explains each of the steps, like this, which is really neat because it also gives a summary for beginners. And that's not all. You can also turn to ChatGPT when there's an error. So this is from my chat history. I encountered an error and took a screenshot of the code. And this red line here shows the breakpoint where I told the code to pause. And this yellow line shows where the code actually errored out. So I included the screenshot, which you can see here. I close that again. And then I typed out there's a bad file name or folder on this line, which is what the error reported in Excel was. And since I was using O4 Mini High for this prompt, it actually thought through for 6 seconds. I can show you the thinking. And it gave me this answer with a suggested solution. And it told me to replace my existing routine with this. And when I put the code back into the VB editor, it worked. Before the days of AI, learning VBA used to feel impossible for most people. It was like trying to climb a steep mountain with no clear path to the top. But now AI does 95% of the heavy lifting. So you only need to work out the final 5%. And instead of struggling up a mountain, it's more like strolling around the countryside. However, even with AI's help, beginners can still feel lost when starting with VBA because there's a steep learning curve to navigate at the beginning. And that's why I created my Excel macros and VBA school. Inside, I guide you step by step so you can skip the confusion and dead ends and start automating Excel much faster. So I split the course into 3 levels so you can start easy and make steady progress while leveling up. With level 1, we get our engine started with VBA fundamentals, covering macros, the VBA editor, and the Excel object model. With level 2, we move into cruise control by looking into program flow, then working with workbooks, and finally introducing user interaction. And with level 3, we get into pole position to reach VBA mastery. By the end of the course, you'll know VBA well enough so that you can use AI to work on even more advanced projects. So what do others say about the course? My student Kenneth wrote that he never expected to write VBA by himself, but after completing the first half of the course, he learned so much that he's able to confidently read and write VBA code. Before, it wouldn't have made any sense to him, but now he clearly understands. And my course has reviews on Trustpilot like this one from Alex, who says that for a beginner who wants to learn Excel macros and VBA, this course is the right choice. And I'm confident that it will cut your VBA learning time in half. So if you're ready to get past the toughest part of learning VBA, check out the link below to join over 500 students who have already taken control of Excel and see for yourself why they like this course so much. But if you want to watch more free videos about Excel VBA first, I've got you covered. Check out this video next, where we look at some advanced VB editor hacks that will save you time and make you feel like a pro. I'll see you there.